Thank you for joining us today on the Meta Perspective and our discussion on the silent depression. We are in a silent depression for sure when we're comparing to 1930s, but the question is what to do. You may have recently come across online something called the silent depression. This is what we're here to talk about today. We're joined by Christy D'Oliveira, Anthony Foer, and Miele. Sam, talk to me about the silent depression.
What I know about it?
Yeah, tell me what you know about it.
Okay, so from a 19-year-old's perspective, I mean, I haven't heard too much about it. You don't really see too much online, of course, only when you search it up. The one thing that I've learned about the silent depression is it's something that people don't know about. So we obviously have the Great Depression back in the 30s, but now we're in a silent depression. I don't really know what the difference though is. What is the difference between a Great Depression and a silent depression? I don't even know why it matters.
Let me throw a stat at you, okay? And then let me know what you think. So in 1930s, a car would cost about 46% of the average household income. It now costs 85% of someone's average household income.
Yeah, see, that's just it's simple. That's not affordable. That's not, I mean, has the world always run that way? I don't think so.
Okay. Anthony, do you think we're in a silent depression?
If we're going to base it solely off the statistic that you just gave, then I would probably say we're either in one or we've been in one for a very long time.
Things are just unaffordable right now. I don't know if I call it a silent depression.
Yeah, but I also think that if it's going to be that stat, you know, income versus the cost of goods,
yes,
we've seen the cost of goods continue to rise and we've seen income sort of stay stagnant for a long period of time.
Right.
So if this is a problem, my best guess is that this probably started like a half a century ago. Where this is not the beginning, we're probably either in the middle or hopefully the end would be nice, judging by what we know about it. But this has been probably going on for a very long time.
Yeah, this is, okay, both of you guys are in real estate. This is a slow creep probably, right? So in 1930s, the average home would cost 3 times the annual salary. It now costs 10. So definitely from that perspective,
Yeah.
we must have some sort of silent depression. What do you think, Christy?
I just think that there's been like a lifestyle change of some sort. Like, I don't know if we just got accustomed to it. We live a certain way and we're comfortable with these like smaller margins.
Right.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that. The word depression seems like there's a vague definition on it.
I feel like we use the silent depression almost to not admit defeat.
Okay, but are we even talking about it? Because like you said, it's hard to find online. It hasn't really had any sort of mainstream attraction.
Well, we don't want to talk about it because we don't want people to think that we're in a depression. I mean, it's already depressing enough right now. People don't need to, like, Christy, you're depressed. Okay, Christy, I say this to you, you are depressed. You're going to feel more depressed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to tell people that we're in a depression.
Exactly.
Just look at the general narrative in our country right now. Half of the people think that this is like the worst thing that's ever happened and we're in the worst state we've ever been in. And then there's other people saying like, no, stay the course. We're doing what we're doing. And a lot of this is very revolutionary in the sense that we've seen this before. We saw this, okay? This happened when I was born. Stay the course. You know, let us do what we got to do with the economy. This is not new.
Itself out.
Exactly. This lingo and this dialogue is not new. And as long as I've been reading about this stuff, this has been going on probably around the time my parents got married was when it really started blowing up. 1980.
I wasn't alive.
Well, see, so then here, think of this. In 1930s, okay, here's what, in my research, what I found really interesting. In 1930s, of course, we're saying it was cheaper in proportion to your income to buy certain goods like a home and a car. But inflation between 1930 and 33 actually turned into deflation. Prices dropped by 25%. Now we're having an inflation problem of 4%, as announced yesterday. So what do we make of that?
I mean, I have not been around that long to talk about it. But what I will say is, from what I've heard in the media and the stuff that I watch, yes, inflation is insanely high. You know, how we rein that in, I mean, we can debate about that.
Debate.
You know, in the second segment, but
But most people have reined it in through debt, right? They've reined it in through debt, which is probably a contributor to this silent depression we're seeing, right? Because that's how houses have increased in value, and why they're a larger proportion, right?
But we are a society though that lives on credit and doesn't care.
Yeah.
That's and that is
Absolutely.
undisputable as far as I'm concerned.
The government or society?
I'm
just in
talking.
general?
I'm talking a collective as a whole. We are a society now that if I don't have the money, no problem. I'll borrow it and I'll pay it back. And that's the mentality
that's-
that's been going on for a long time.
That's one of my big concerns. Is you know we've really our system here in Canada has been around for 100 years. It's not like it's been around for a very, very long time. So do we really even have proof that the current system that we're in will work? I mean, I feel like we have to see some adjustments to that. Other countries are making adjustments. It seems like we're kind of set in our ways, and we're just like adding on more debt to fix the debt that we currently have. And where are we borrowing from? Like that's my concern.
That's also something that's not new and has been around for probably the last 5 decades.
Okay, guys, we're going to start off this segment with a clip from Minister Freeland, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and also the Minister of Finance of this country.
Before I close, I just want to offer a final thought for Canadians. I know that for millions of Canadians, the past few years have been really challenging. We've been through a global pandemic, the deepest recession since the Great Depression, and then a surge of inflation caused by the pandemic and Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
All right. Anthony, what do you think about Minister Freeland's claim that the inflation was caused by, obviously, the pandemic and what is going on right now?
So I didn't see the whole clip, but what I would say is we missed a very important part, and that would have been major supply chain issues. The fact that if there's 10 microchips and 30 companies need one of those microchips, cost through the roof. That was a huge contributor to inflation. The fact that you couldn't buy a car on a lot because all the lots were empty. The fact that used cars went up in price by numbers you'd never seen before. Supply chain issues were a huge part in what's caused inflation.
But why are we
to go
so
through the roof.
reliant on what's happening in other countries?
Why are we so reliant on what's happening in other countries?
Why can't we be more reliant on what we have here in North America, energy-wise and materialistic-wise?
So this is going to be a question of whether or not we want to go through 50 years of bad government policy or we want to talk about the issues at hand. So the issues at hand right now is inflation's a problem, okay? And I think she's trying to outline what's caused the problems. And I don't think anybody is going to go on the news right now and say, by the way, the hundreds of billions of dollars we borrowed to keep you in your home, to keep businesses afloat, to keep workers in their employment so they could go back to work when the pandemic eased was a waste of money. No one's going to go on there and say that. So I think what's missing from the clip to me is a huge part of the meat and potatoes, and it was supply chain issues, and that was a very real thing.
Okay. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, I would agree with her to a certain extent. COVID definitely caused it, but then you got to look at, there's other countries who handled COVID differently, and we didn't see a mass surge of inflation, right? There's a lot of countries in Europe that did that. So I think, I mean, if we want to talk about inflation specifically, if we had maybe not handed out free money to people that didn't need it, I'll say this outright. I collected CERB checks because I knew that it was free money and I could easily take it. It was money that I paid to the government anyways. I want to get it back. No problem. They gave out billions of dollars in CERB checks and vetted very few. So I think if we're just handing out money, we're paying for it today.
Absolutely. So because I love stats, as you know, 2/3 of Canadians collected CERB.
Really?
Or some form of subsidy from that. So and CERB alone accounted for in 2021 over $60 billion of money that was printed for CERB checks alone. The average Canadian collected $8,000.
See, I just don't know if I didn't know if we really needed to do that.
So what do you think,
I don't
Christy?
want to get into like why we've done things or where we've gone from there. The biggest question to me is like, have we ever thought about Canada just being one of the newer countries on the global scale, and that we do need time to get to all these places of perfection that we're holding our country against? Like, we're constantly comparing ourselves to countries that are just ahead of us because of time and population and the ability to have the infrastructure they do because of time, and we just haven't been around long enough.
Interesting point. Cities were built in Italy, and I mean, they use them today, but they were built 500 years ago. They've just revamped them a little bit. I guess I didn't think about that.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, from a debt perspective, though, like we have definitely gone on the gravy train. I mean, right now we're about $1.5 trillion in debt as a country.
69 billion was paid in servicing the interest last year alone.
Isn't that a startling number?
It's not good, but
Is it sustainable? I don't.
okay,
it's
so
not
but
sustainable.
when I'm educating my clients
Okay.
to leverage and re-leverage to get ahead in life, to build wealth eventually through leveraging, there is a thought process behind that. We do have to kind of go into debt to get ahead. Like even in my business, I reinvest every year. I take maybe a step back to get a few steps forward. Could that be sort of the mindset around that? And I'm not trying to be political in any way or
No, but
side
it
with
does
any
make
decisions
sense.
that have been made,
It does
but I'm
make
just
sense.
thinking about it in my own lifestyle as I've gone back and put myself in debt to get
Yep.
forward.
I mean, when you wonder where our country would be at if we didn't have the option to, borrow what's from the future, we'd probably be like 50 years to 100 years, actually maybe more behind.
Yeah,
So-
you do need to borrow in order to invest in the future, for
But
sure.
then
I
you look
totally
at
agree.
you look at North America in general, and then you're like, well, maybe we're just so ahead because we've just borrowed so much money. Like that's another concern.
Both of what they said is right. You have to take risks. You have to go into debt to make money. That is not a new principle. And if we didn't borrow money, you would be riding horse and buggy down a dirt road that we know as the QEW. So you need to borrow money.
No, it wouldn't be the
Yes.
QEW.
Yeah, no, it would be the
dirt road of
yeah, like
Queen.
what is it called? The dog and pony expressway.
Yeah.
So you need to borrow, you need to go into debt, but that's for people who are willing to take risks. And are you risk adverse or are you not? So
Well,
do you
we
want to
shouldn't be
take
taking
those
risks.
chances? Do you want to take those chances with assets, or do you want to do what other generations have? I grew up in a generation where it was save your money, save your money, save your money, save your money. To do what? To look at it?
So in segment 3, we're going to talk about the impacts of this so-called silent depression. So I'll give you guys a quick stat. According to Food Banks Canada in 2022, they had their most busy year ever. And in 2023, they expect this year to have a 60% increase in foot traffic within food banks here in Canada.
But doesn't the need just grow despite economically? Like the need will grow as we have more
60%?
people. Well, we've also let in, by 2025, we would have let in 1.5 million immigrants into the country. Whether that's good or bad, we're not talking about that. I'm just saying is we're letting in more people will need that support naturally.
Yeah.
So why is it a tell on, the silent depression and everybody's depressed, nobody has any money? I don't know.
But life is clearly more expensive now than it was last year and the year before. So clearly there are people from the middle class, for example, who are now perhaps going to food banks. A 60% increase is a huge increase.
Could be valid. Yeah. I mean,
No?
I
Anthony?
yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to it because I've never been there before. I think I don't know if anybody has been on the panel. If you have and you've overcome it, that's awesome. All I know are the stats that I read. They're very scary stats. And I think it is a fallout of just the times we're living in. And like, you can get into a whole debate on whether or not you agree with what happened in the last 3 years. It happened, it's undeniable, and now it's time to forge a plan to move forward, get people out of food banks, and get things back on track. And I think that that's really the conversation for the people in charge.
One thing we're also seeing are food costs. Obviously, this is a big topic right now, right? So the average family of 4 is going to spend this year $16,000 to feed their families, and that's up by 27% from last year. So that's a huge impact,
Well, I mean,
right?
when taxes go up on corporations, for something called a carbon tax, then yeah, I think you have to raise your prices a little bit, and then that just comes down to the end consumer having to pay for it. So I would make the argument that it necessarily isn't just, I understand what you're saying where, okay, in the last 3 years, what happened. I'm all for that. It is what it is. That's a dangerous mentality to have because it means you can continue to push forward as a person. But what I will say is what happened, and now we're hurting people more and more, making food unaffordable. Like when were 2 avocados supposed to cost $4?
When was the demand in grocery stores this high, though? That's something that's indisputable.
That's
More
a
people
good point.
shop and buy groceries than they do go out for dinner, and that's a fact now in this economy. So more people have the mentality of stay home, Don't spend your money at a restaurant. $100 at a restaurant means 2 or 3 meals at home. Well, now 2 or 3 meals at home. It used to be like 4 or 5. But more demand at the grocery store, more demand on
So
supply.
do we need more supply?
So what? No. So what I'm saying is more demand at the grocery store is more demand on supply chain, which means if we have 100 corn on the cobs and 150 people need the corn on the cobs, what do you think is going to happen?
It's going to cost more.
What's going to cost more money? So you can equate that to taxes. Yes, that will play a part. But I think, like I said, the biggest part of this is supply and the fact that there are demands in sectors now, including grocery stores, that wasn't there before. When you hear the economy is doing this bad, when I hear the economy is doing bad, I'm not running to go out for dinner. I'm running to the grocery store because I'm calculating in my head, oh, if I'm going to go spend $150 with booze at a restaurant, I probably got 8 dusty bottles of wine at home, and I can go buy 2 chicken breasts for $12 and buy vegetables, and we got lunch and dinner for the next day. That's how I was raised. I'm different than most people in the country.
Right.
Maybe.
But there's a lot of
know if you
convenience
are.
factor. Right?
Right? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to grocery stores. I mean, I try
Yeah.
to, I don't know. I think.
How much do you do like Uber Eats or?
Okay, so that's what I was going to bring up. Is my problem
Yeah.
is I am not. I still live at home, and I unfortunately don't take enough advantage of that because I'll still go out and buy food.
Right.
I won't even go to a grocery store. I go to Farm Boy, and I'll spend $20 on one meal rather than $20 on a few different
Ingredients,
things
yeah.
and ingredients. What I will say though is, my girlfriend goes to a grocery store, spends $190 on groceries, and she feels like she got less than a week's worth of food. That's insanity.
Yeah, it is crazy expensive. Let's throw this back into housing. Okay, so the average rent cost is 42% of annual income today, and in 1930, just to flip it back to the Great Depression, it was 16%. So
16% seems just too. I don't know.
That
Too
does
low?
seem.
That's
I
low.
felt like we had room to grow there, and like I don't think that it does sound. And I know that people are having a hard time wrapping their mind around these numbers, but I think it is just a matter of getting used to it. I don't think this is going anywhere. I think we need it. We need everything to sort of increase, like you're saying, like. It comes like even at the grocery store, like everything is increasing in value, but somebody is reaping the benefit of that somewhere, and it's all playing into the same circle of opportunity.
yeah, I think we kind of needed to stabilize, right, guys? Like that's the whole thing. 'Cause-
Stabilized, but Christy's not wrong. It's a fine balance. Like 2% of inflation is typically what a financial planner would budget for in somebody's retirement over 40 years. What I
We're
will
double
say-
right now.
I know. Well, arguably more. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I would say.
Well, the published stat is 4%, so that's what we're going to call it. But look at the rising cost of housing.
Yeah.
Like purchasing housing. So that inevitably is going to impact the cost of rent, whether we like it or not.
Okay, this is my favorite part of the show. Here we're going to talk about solutions. Why don't we start with this? I'll throw it to you,
Oh, boy.
Anthony. Yeah. So give us an idea of what you think Canadians or we can do as Canadians to overcome this so-called silent depression.
Silent depression. I can only answer for what I've done.
Sure.
And I've adjusted my lifestyle. That's all you can do. So I've adjusted my lifestyle. So once we got the word that variable rate mortgages were going through the roof, there was inflation coming, things were going to get a lot expensive. I went through my budget, and you don't realize how much money you're spending until you go through your own budget. I got rid of 3 streaming services. I got rid of a gym membership because I have a gym in my building. I'm very lucky to have that. So all in all, I cut out $4,000 a year out of useless and wasted spending. That's what I did. Not because I wanted to, but I felt like I had to. Times are going to get tougher, and things are just going to get more expensive. So it was a lifestyle change. I don't want to speak for what the rest of the country or the rest of the world should do. I'm going to tell you what I did, and if you feel that a lifestyle change is what you need to put some money in your pocket, that's what I did, and I'm quite happy with what I did.
I also think being aware of your finances as well is an
Yeah.
important one. One thing that my sister actually showed me, so my older sister, she was doing some woodworking off Facebook Marketplace, and she had a spreadsheet where it's so simple. And like, you're your own accountant. She literally had a spreadsheet that automatically calculated your expenses and your income from like your different sources and all the different expenses. So like your fixed expenses and your variable expenses every month. So say your car payment or insurance or your phone bill, and then your grocery bill is a variable, right? And so then there was another little section that said my total revenue, my total income, and my total profit. Sorry, same thing, but total expenses and total profit.
Right.
And that's what I was able to base everything off of. And then what I would do is I would be addicted to that. So I would look at that expense sheet and I'd be like, what can I take out? And then I'd create another little section that said equals, and then all the cells in that spreadsheet that I could delete from my monthly. I still do that to this day with my business. I think more people need to be aware of where they're spending their money, because all of a sudden you look. I remember I would look at my account at the end of the month and be like, where'd all my money go?
I'm sitting with clients and we're talking about, what is your situation, financial situation. We're crunching the numbers together. I'm helping them through that. I'm sure you're doing that as well with your clients. And then we're figuring out what is the best solution to cutting costs. Is it maybe they have an investment property and they can rent out their primary residence and move into their investment property, which is a lower overhead for them for a temporary period of time. Maybe they have to unload something. Maybe they have to downsize. Maybe they only have one home and they can downsize into something, maybe rent for a while to get through this period. However, they can, use what they have to get through it. I think, and that's for people who are fortunate to have those assets and be able to change things around that way.
Well, a lot of people, even in my generation, don't even know that they can talk to you guys for free and they can talk to you for free. They think they have to pay you, and there's some sort of obligation.
Why is that?
No, to be honest, I just think it's this expectation that you have to pay for everything now in society. I mean, when I tell one of my buddies that, no, you could call up a realtor tomorrow, and if they're willing to grab coffee with you, it doesn't owe you a thing. They're not like lawyers. So, you can literally sit down with them, although, you guys got to be careful of where you spend your time, right? It is in your best interest for somebody to be able to be resourceful. And I think that's an important thing, is for people to realize how to be resourceful. Yeah. Those are, at the end of the day, those are the best business people, those are the best leaders, and those are the ones that can get ahead. Is you figure out how to be resourceful. You sacrifice a thing or two for a year or two, and you move on, right?
Yeah, every Friday I'm in my office, and I do my own bookkeeping for my business. I love the car I drive, but I probably won't get another BMW because it's no waste. What a waste of money. The cars are expensive.
Yes.
No way. Not again.
Now more than ever.
Yeah, no. Well, why do you think I bought it during the pandemic? Because I knew the interest rate was 0.85%, not 8%. So that's why we took a little chance. But I do my bookkeeping work at the end of every week. I make sure that my budget's add up, and sometimes we're making adjustments. And there's times, and the one thing I want to say to people listening is, you're allowed to fudge your budget. Oh, I don't balance my my personal income every month. My partner and I moved in together. We bought a whole new condo because I had bachelor pad stuff, is so what he told me. So that was coming out of the personal budget. I don't budget for that every month. So yeah, we had to move some money around, but it happens. Don't feel like if you make a mistake or you don't hit your monthly target, it's a bad thing. The same thing with housing. I do net sheets all the time with my clients.
Yes.
Right? And the best advice I was giving people, and some people that were in financial situations they didn't want to be in, you have a principal residence that's paid for. If you have a rental, do you love it that much? Maybe you got to move into the rental. Sell it, pocket the money, and you're good to go.
I will say this. Speaking from my generation, the comments that I've heard, it's like, you guys are the devil and you just steal my money. That's the, and it's just such a problem. Because when I think about it, I grew up with a dad who's in professional services, right? So in my opinion, I think every single person should have a financial planner that they trust with their life.
Yeah. Yes.
They should have a realtor who they trust with their life, and they should have a mortgage broker who they trust with their life.
Thank you for joining us today on the Meta Perspective and our discussion on the silent depression. So to summarize, we did discuss and realize that we are in some way experiencing some inflation, and we are in a silent depression for sure when we're comparing to 1930s. But the question is what to do, because we're always going to be looking at solutions. And today what we came up with together as a panel was to really consider perhaps some of the things that we're doing in ourselves in terms of changing some of our habits and some of our expenses. Obviously get to know where we're spending our money. That's really important. And I think having some experts within our lives, such as real estate agents and financial planners and mortgage brokers and people around us, even family members and community members who are excelling in that area, and lean on these people for their professional advice to better yourselves and your own situation so that you can move forward and progress. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.